Good morning. It is Monday, November 26th, and this is The Drill. And thank you very much. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States of America today, because I'm the only one that makes the presumption for the status quo. And this is the show for the butchers, the bakers, and the candlestick makers. And it is the show that answers the question, what can I do? I've heard on the Rush Limbaugh show callers call up and ask that question, what can I do? Rush Limbaugh's answer is always the same, vote. So basically what he's telling people is that you're irrelevant, socio-politically irrelevant, except for once every 2 years. And that's just hogwash. That's just baloney. The only reason it seems like that you are, to him, that it seems that you're irrelevant except for once every 2 years is if you think about it, once every 2 years, what? You become part of a collective voting bloc. You become part of the Republican or conservative voting bloc. Rush Limbaugh his show is about reaching people wholesale and trying to make wholesale changes. He's reaching millions of Americans every day. And he is been tricked by the left into believing that the only way to deal with a movement is by creating a counter movement. Not so. The individual is powerful. The individual has power. The individual not only has rights, but the individual has power. And the individual can exercise that power and do so on a daily basis. And the weapons that the individual has is logic, for one thing, grammar, for another thing, and rhetoric. Those are the three parts of the trivium, what are called the trivium, and which is three parts of a liberal arts education. The other three parts of the seven parts that are part of a liberal arts education. The others are arithmetic, music, and geometry and astronomy. So, but in any case, the point is that the individual can make a difference by being well-versed in grammar, logic, and rhetoric as a basic, and then also on having basic understandings of philosophical issues and the different political parties and what they stand for. The individual can be a powerful force, because it's not only about what it is that's going on in Washington or in the state capitals. It's about what goes on in your life each and every day. Donald Trump does this, and somebody else responds to it and calls him names, and they get back into Twitter battle. I don't care about that. That doesn't raise my rent. It doesn't save me money when I go to the grocery store. It doesn't irritate or annoy me I can just turn it off. Okay, I can change my Facebook setup so I don't even have to see those things. I don't have to listen to the radio, at least not in terms of news or talk radio. I can listen to music instead. So I can tune it out if I want to. What I can't tune out are my coworkers. I can't tune out my relatives. I can't tune out my so-called friends and my acquaintances and the people that I am meeting in my daily life on a regular basis. The people that are robbing me blind little by little each and every day. And in a lot of cases, in some cases without my knowledge or permission. Now, I am in a position where I am becoming more and more educated on the tools, the techniques, and the tactics of the left, and learning how to deal with, I was going to say resist, but I'm not sure that's quite the word I'm looking for, those tools, techniques, and tactics. And that's what this show is basically about. How you as an individual, what can you do to be effective in standing your ground against socialism and socialistic practices. So when I come back, I'm going to be reading from the Ayn Rand lexicon. Back in a minute. Thank you very much. Welcome back. And the Ayn Rand Lexicon, I love to read it because it reminds me, and should remind everybody else, the value and the importance of concepts, and reminding people that concepts are real. This is part of the battle against materialism. Materialism is the intellectual error that says that the only things that are real is that what you can touch and feel, and things that you think about aren't real. When we last time we read about corollaries, and today's concept is corporations. A corporation is a union of human beings in a voluntary cooperative endeavor. It exemplifies the principle of free association, which is an expression of the right to freedom. Any attributes which corporations have are attributes or rights which the individuals have, including the right to combine in a certain way, offer products under certain terms, and deal with others according to certain rules. For instance, limited liability. An individual can say to a storekeeper, I would like to have, quote, I would like to have credit, but I put you on notice that if I can't pay, you can't attach my home. Take it or leave it, unquote. The storekeeper is free to accept those terms or not. A corporation is a cooperative, productive endeavor which gives a similar warning explicitly. It has no mystical attributes, no attributes that don't go back to the right of individuals, including their right of free association. And I would think that the importance of this concept is obvious, that how many people out there have seen the bumper stickers that say a corporation is not a person. But as a matter of fact, or as a matter of law, it is, because it has the same rights and responsibilities as any individual. So it can be sued, for instance. The only issue with it, again, is that if you're going to sue the corporation, you don't get to take, if I'm, let's say, the CEO or let's say the CEO of the corporation, you sue the corporation for damages, you can't come after me personally to recoup the damages. You're going to have to get it from whatever assets the corporation happens to have. So, perfectly reasonable and perfectly fine. So, when I come back, we're going to be, well, we'll see. Back in a minute. Thank you very much, and welcome back. So I think I'm going to go ahead and look at the 13 tactics for realistic radicals. And let's see what we've got here. Okay, let's go back. Let's try the sixth rule, which is apparently where we left off. Good tactic is one. Let me again preface this real quick by saying the 13 rules for radicals is from this. Taken from, it's a distillation of the rules that were in the book titled Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky. Sixth rule, a good tactic is one that your people enjoy. If your people are not having a ball doing it, there is something very wrong with the tactic. The seventh rule, a tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. Man can sustain militant interest in any issue for a limited time, after which it becomes a ritualistic commitment, like going to church on Sunday mornings. New issues and crises are always developing, and one's reaction becomes, quote, well, my heart bleeds for those people, and I'm all for the boycott, but after all, there are other important things in life, unquote. And there it goes. The eighth rule, keep the pressure on. With different tactics and actions, you can utilize all events of the period for your purpose. The ninth rule, the threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself. The 10th rule, the major premise for tactics is the development of operations that will maintain a constant pressure upon the opposition. It is this unceasing pressure that results in the reactions from the opposition that are essential for the success of the campaign. It should be remembered not only that the action is in the reaction, but the action itself, but that action is itself the consequence of reaction, and of reaction to the reaction ad infinitum. The pressure produces the reaction, and constant pressure sustains action. Part of the reason, and I just realized that the last time I read this book, I this is where we left off at this particular point with 10 of the 13 rules. But I thought that, while I was reading this, that this is good to reemphasize it because of something I read on Facebook where an individual had posted about the rioting and whatnot that's going on the southern border, not too far away from where I live, by the way, Pasadena, California, and that he was, sounding the dire warning that if we let these people across, then, basically we're all doomed. And so the first thing I was thinking of was Rule 9. The threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself. And that's the whole idea here with because, they got, even if they, with 6,000, 10,000 people, we can muster more troops and more law enforcement than they can bring refugees. Okay, so the point is to make a threat. His also has talk about constant pressure. That's why there's always talking about the next caravan and the one after that and the one after that. All of these tactics are psychological in nature. They're designed to break us down as individuals, to make us say, I can't take this anymore, it's too much pressure, just give in to them, just let them in, and accede to their demands or succeed, or let them have what they want. Let's put it that way. The other thing is, the temptation is, I can't take this anymore, damn it, do something about this, I don't care what it is, put an end to it and put an end to it now, which has a tendency to drive overreaction. We what are we going to do? Bring tanks? Are we going to have a Tiananmen Square here situation where we have some refugee standing in the way of an M1A1 Abrams tank? Okay, and that plays into the left's hands. The left can make all kinds of hay out of any overreaction that's done on the border. Now, so far so good in terms of how the Trump administration is handling it. They're doing measured responses. They are making sure their responses are basically commensurate with what it is that these migrants are doing. So they are going ahead and shutting down the border, for instance. They just say, okay, you want to be rude? We're going to shut down the border. Nobody gets in. And we're going to shut down the point of entry. And so that's a good idea. Again, one of my suggestions was, because again, what they're looking for here is overreaction, is underreact. Just, hey, sure, you want to come in and you're going to apply for asylum? No problem. Line up. Okay? Now, the Trump administration says they can handle about 100 a day. Me, I might say, you know what? We can handle 10 a day. I might be approaching it that way. Because again, what is the seventh rule? A tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. So the idea here is, you got to remember, time is on our side, on the United States side, on the administration side, not on the side of the organizers, not on Soros' side. Time is not on their side. Whatever they're going to do, they have to do it quickly and soon, or go away. Because if they hang out, eventually all the steam in the movement is going to dissipate. And all you're going to end up there with is just about a gaggle of people. Now, also I read this morning, also on Facebook, so take it take it with a grain of salt, I guess, that the Mexican government has promised that it will deport people in the wake of the rioting that was going on at the border. That apparently what happened was that these individuals tried to rush the border, that they overran Mexican police and authorities rushing to the border, and American authorities were able to make sure they didn't get across. So, and the Mexican government said, that's it, we're going to start deporting people. So how many they're going to deport and whether or not they actually follow through with it remains to be seen. But the point is, that's what they're trying to do. This is always psychological in their mind. If you look at the tactics that he's describing, they're all psychologistic in nature. The whole point of this is, like a seventh grader, is to try to psych you out. You tell your seventh grade classmate, you say, hey, I got an A on a paper. And he says, so what? Anybody could have done that. And then you're deflated. You feel destroyed. You feel the first time they do it. And then once you go home and you're crying and your parents say, look, they're doing this to play with your mind. And once you realize that, after that, the tactic no longer works. Okay, you may go back to that same classmate next time, say, hey, guess what? I got an A. And they're going to say, so what? Anyone could have done it. So then you just walk away and go tell somebody else. So you go tell Susie, hey, Susie, I got an A. And she'll say, great, that's wonderful. And you get what you're looking for. And the same kind of little 7th grade antics are going on here. Now, what makes them kind of scary is that these are 7th grade antics that are being carried on out by adults. I like to say that when children act like children, it's cute, it's sweet, it's endearing. When adults act like children, it's creepy. Don't be creepy. So, back in a minute. Okay, thank you very much. So we go from radicals to rules for radicals. We go from rules for radicals to rules for radicals defeated. And this chapter is called Community Organizing and Rules for Radicals. When Barack Obama burst on the scene in 2007, the term community organizer was thrust to the forefront of the national dialogue. Unfortunately, in the interim, far too few have taken the time to discover exactly what community organizing is and just how influential the tactics of Saul Alinsky have become in American politics. As Thomas Jefferson said, whenever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government. That whenever things get so far wrong as to attract their notice, they may be relied on to set them to rights. Rules for Radicals is looked upon as the Bible of the leftist revolution and counterculture. It contains principles designed to help the would-be radical foment a revolution that is intended to bring down capitalism and usher in a new age of utopian bliss. While these goals are the boilerplate hippie pie-in-the-sky stuff we're all accustomed to, the tactics themselves are quite ingenious. They offer overarching principles that radicals can use to defeat their enemies. These tactics are the very same tactics used by Hillary Clinton and, more successfully, by Barack Obama and his team of advisors. The astonishing part is that the right always seems surprised when they are attacked with Alinsky tactics, and instead of formulating a reasonable defense, they simply complain that the other side is using unfair tactics. I hope this book can go a long way in rectifying that situation. So, let's see. Yeah, and again, it just reiterates what I've said, is that this is a man here that's writing this book that really understands what the left is all about, and has always been all about since Karl Marx, and that is worldwide socialist paradise. He referred to it as utopian bliss. I also refer to it as socialist hell on earth, because that's really what they're going to be ushering in if they ever get to that point, which I don't see it. Because really, when you look at the left, not even the left really wants a revolution. They pretend, but they don't really want it. So, the talk about the tactics, and this has really jumped out at me as well. And instead of formulating a reasonable defense, they simply complain that the other side is using unfair tactics. And one of the things that you got to realize is that since everything that they do is tactical, everything that they do is tactical tools, techniques, that these are not people you want to engage with. These are not people you want to seek out to have a debate with. Because there's a lot of conservatives make the mistake of thinking, I'm going to go look for liberals or socialists to engage. I will engage them in a debate, and I will convince them that they are wrong, and I will basically turn them into conservatives. No, you're not going to do that. Now, I've had a few people that call Rush Limbaugh and claim that they have done such a thing. No, they haven't. I guarantee it. The only way you're going to be able to turn a liberal is when they are literally defeated, when they realize that there is no power in socialism. Because ultimately that's what socialism offers the individual: power. And for decades, it's worked. If you don't believe it, look at, again, how Republicans respond to the socialists and the liberals. And I'm thinking about, particularly right now, politicians and the way they handle the left. And Newt Gingrich is a classic example. He had when he was Speaker of the House, he had a news conference, news conference every day. He'd sit down, he called it the Speaker's Minute or something. He had some kind of a slogan for it. They thought it was cute because he thought, well, I'm going to sit down and be able to reason with people. I will show them transparency and explain to people, the news people anyways, what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, et cetera, et cetera. And he found out very quickly that this was a mistake, that the people in the news business had absolutely no interest in being reasonable, that all they wanted to do was exercise power. And they're really interested in seeing what they could do to have him removed from office. And it ended up being that they didn't do it so much as he did it to himself in a couple of ways. But that's a discussion for another time. But the point is then he should have known that anyways. If he's watching the news on a regular basis, why would you be stupid enough to go and sit down with these folks? Another example of that is Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity knows the tactics that the left-wing news people bring to the table. And yet he sat down with Ted Koppel and allowed him to do an interview. And then surprise, surprise, to when Ted Koppel edits the interview in such a way as to make Sean Hannity look like a fool, look like an idiot. And it's not the first time that the left has done this with some people that were pro-gun or pro-Second Amendment, is another way to put it. They were interviewed for, of course, a left-wing. It was a program basically that's trying to make the point that we should have more gun control. And so they had to, in order to appear balanced, they brought in people that were pro-Second Amendment, a group of individuals that were pro-Second Amendment. And they asked certain questions, but in a key question where they edited the tape to make it look as though the people that are pro-Second Amendment had no answer, that they were stumped for an answer. When you look at the real tape, you find out that actually the people did have an answer for the question, and it was a good answer. But again, by editing the tape in a special way, they were able to make things look the way they wanted them to look. They were able to basically take a news broadcast and propagandize it, weaponize it, use it as a weapon, a tool for, again, gaining and maintaining power. So, don't do it anymore. Rush Limbaugh also went through this early in his career, and he was giving interviews to Playboy. He gave interviews to this magazine, that, and on and on. And he said on his broadcast, he realized they have no interest. They're not interested in listening to what Rush Limbaugh has to say. They want to use him to increase their ratings, number one. And number two, they want to use it, bring him in so that they can find ways of discrediting him and making him look foolish and stupid to their audience. So basically using him for propaganda purposes. Once he woke up to this, he quit giving interviews. Good for him. I'm glad he figured it out. The whole idea here is, in defeating the left, is when the left have nobody else to talk to but themselves, most of them are going to start questioning, why am I doing this? Okay, the left has promised me power. I don't have any power. That's when they're going to come to you and ask, gee, what's being conservative all about? I'm sick of liberalism. I'm sick of being a socialist. I'm tired of it. So talk to me about conservatism. And when they come to you with an attitude like that, and they're coming to you in good faith, then you can proselytize. Then you can convert them. But until that happens, you're wasting your time. Don't waste your time. And at that, we come to the conclusion of another episode of The Drill. And until next time, thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.